Well, thank you, everyone, and I will try and keep this as interactive and brief and dynamic as possible for you, because I'm conscious of the fact a lot of people will be looking at their clocks and saying it's nearly lunchtime. So we'll try and move things on as quickly as we can. But as I said, in so doing, be as interactive as possible. Why? Because that interactivity is at the core of what we'd like to discuss up here on the main stage. I don't need to tell you that innovation likes to live in clusters. It likes to breathe in clusters. It likes to emerge out of clusters. It's what made Silicon Valley and spawned startup colonies in big cities around the world. Often, in cases like that, aided and abetted by government policies aimed at encouraging that growth and stimulation. But what lessons learned in the West, places like Silicon Valley and others, could accelerate similar efforts to innovate the markets, and specifically the media markets of the Middle East? How do we continue to enable these entrepreneurial ecosystems to form and to grow? Well, thankfully, our panel of experts have a few ideas on these topics, and hopefully so do you as well. We'll encourage as many questions from the floor in due course as our panel lead this discussion. And talking of the panel, allow me now, if I may, to introduce you to they. And it is ladies first, as always. So please put your hands together for someone who served as the former editor-in-chief at WAMDA, the largest entrepreneurship news site in the Middle East, covering business and technology trends in no fewer than 14 markets. She's now the managing director of Flat 6 Labs here in Abu Dhabi, which is a startup accelerator designed to support early-stage companies with a focus on media and, more specifically, content as well, and the importance of it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the main stage, Nina Curley. Joining Nina up here with us today, it is an absolute pleasure to introduce our next speaker here in his capacity as MD of the DIC and DOZ. He works daily to ensure the effective implementation of TCOM investments, overarching strategy, both in the region but further afield as well. Those visions to become a world-class developer and operator of business parks, delivering maximum value to shareholders, sustaining efficiency and improving market share. Ladies and gents, here's the Managing Director for Dubai Internet City, the MENA region's largest ICT hub, and Dubai Outsource Zone, a modern, high-tech business hub dedicated to the growth of the global outsourcing industry. Please put your hands together and welcome the one and only Majed Al-Suwaidi. And to make up our famous trio up here on the top table for you this afternoon, please welcome a man who has become a regional, not to say that, a global authority on his area of academic expertise. He is a nanotechnologist and an entrepreneurial technologist specializing in converting abstract concepts into tangible and marketable technologies. He's worked for more than 15 years as a chemical engineer in the United States and the UK, culminating in a prestigious appointment as research fellow at Kodak Research Labs. Now, he holds the post as research professor, associate dean of engineering at NYU Abu Dhabi. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Ramesh Jagannathan. So panel, thank you very much indeed for being with us, and what promises to be a fun session as well ahead of the lunch break. And just to sort of recap on what we were saying there at the beginning of proceedings, and we will go straight down to the floor very shortly, but I just want to get your thoughts, if we can, first and foremost, on this subject matter that's up for debate this morning. Taking successful concepts from other parts of the world, bringing them to a part of the world that is looking to develop similar sort of concepts, similar sort of ideas, to continue to enable those entrepreneurial ecosystems to form and grow. Does it work?
That's exactly what we're hoping to do. So at Flat 6 Labs Abu Dhabi, it's very much our mandate to, given the unique positioning of Abu Dhabi, create a global hub for digital innovation. So bringing entrepreneurs in from around the world, and we're using a model that has been tested all over the world. So not just by Flat 6 Labs in Cairo and Jeddah, but by accelerators in every market. So we're offering entrepreneurs a globally competitive curriculum, a chance to connect with mentors both in the region and outside the region, so that entrepreneurs from anywhere in the world can come to this market, which has some of the highest smartphone penetration rates in the world, a very healthy digital market, test their ideas, and then scale back out.
And you're seeing the results already, are you, Nina?
Well, we just opened applications yesterday. So we'll be running our cycle in February, and I'll have more results for you then. But, you know, Flat 6 is already seeing results. So they've, in the past 3 years since they launched in Cairo in 2011 and in Jeddah last year, they've graduated 57 companies, and over half of which have received follow-on funding from third-party investors. So that's above the global average, if you can believe it, here in the Middle East. And so they have over 40 third-party investors. So they're actually seeding a whole ecosystem, getting investors into these high-growth opportunities.
Ramesh, just want to bring you into the conversation here because you mentioned words like Silicon Valley. It's synonymous with success and growth as well. Is it something that can be brought into different parts of the world? Does it happen? Does that success happen overnight?
That's a great question. When I was asked to be part of the program at NYU Abu Dhabi, so I asked myself, do I want to do this? So when what came back to me in my thoughts is that 21st century is very different from 20th century. Silicon Valley, in my opinion, is so 20th century. So if I say, when I say that, what do I mean? In this century, some major things are happening. One, technology is commoditized. Okay, so what was previously the state-of-the-art technologies that are available only to multinational corporations now are available to people, anybody who wants to start a company or so. Second, entrepreneurship is democratized. What I mean by that is now there are so many different technology platforms that are available. These are state-of-the-art platforms. If a person, people in general are very bright, right? It doesn't matter whether you have a PhD or if you're just a fisherman. People can be very creative because they are the users of, technology which has affected us in an unprecedented way, right? So if you have an idea, you can actually, the companies called ODMs in Korea who can actually figure out your idea and shape it up. You can send it to China, build a prototype, build an operating system in India, test drive it. If you like it, crowdsource the money. You can either manufacture 100 products in China or 10,000, and then you can ship it using logistic services around the world, collect money virtually, and so on and so on. So entrepreneurship is democratized, okay? So people say, the landscape has changed. Previously, the majority, people generally, need products and services, and those are generally met by big corporate products, right? But in the 21st century, I believe the landscape is being leveled a little bit. Scalability by numbers, people like, smaller entrepreneurs, adding to the economy is, going to take shape. So I feel that, we need to look at the whole thing in a slightly different way. And then why Abu Dhabi? Because if you really look at it, 45% of the world GDP in the next 10 years is going to come from 7 new growth economies, okay? That means the products and services, that are needed to sustain these economies are not there yet. And Silicon Valley does what it does very well, but people know the big elephant cannot dance fast enough to meet these new developing technologies. And I think we have a fighting chance.
Yeah. Let's bring Majed into the conversation on this very topic. Majed, I mean, you are in possession of the facts and the figures in your day-to-day job of how the success is being borne through at the moment. Do you look to places like Silicon Valley as a mode of inspiration, as something you can learn from?
Well, first of all, it's definitely, we look at everywhere in the world as a source of inspiration. I think that's the magic recipe that has been taken forward over the last 15 years. And today we have just finished our 15th year in operations. in Dubai Internet City, and I think we wouldn't have reached here if we didn't start learning from all over the world. So Silicon Valley and other places around the world have played a great role in taking us to the next level. We believe in one thing is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If the wheel is invented, then you can upgrade that wheel and move forward. That's what we do. So we try to find the best scenarios from around the world and try to put them in some kind of a mold that works for this region. You've mentioned a very interesting thing at the beginning, and you were talking about bringing things from around the world. Earlier we had, this is basically the definition of scalability for some. For some people that are maybe located in Eastern Europe, for instance, and they want to scale up, this is a region for them to scale up, or anyone from around the world. And we are a market that is very, very happy to adapt to new technologies, and adaptability today is one of the highest in the world. And this is based on very basic numbers, like numbers of smartphone usage, percentage of smartphone usages on the ground, which is one of the most important platforms for you to scale up. So yes, we've learned a lot, and we are still learning. We are still visiting all over the world. We are trying to get as much as possible. Anyone who has a better model or a model that works well, we are willing to go and check it out and actually come and develop further on it. And
I think you pick up on an important point there. It'd be interesting to get the thoughts of all three of you and the floor as well on this. This whole idea of being ready to evolve with the times, Majed. Not just saying, okay, this is a cluster of excellence. If you want to be an internet company, you have to come here. It's also moving with the times and moving with the technology as it's being developed around the globe. So being willing to change. Is that important?
Yeah, definitely. Today we are talking about entrepreneurship. 15 years ago we were talking about only IT and hardware, software kind of companies. Today we are talking at a little bit a higher scale. So we are taking the whole community to a next level. Our communities evolve every year. The activities list that we had initially started within in 2000 is totally different in 2014. Yeah. And in fact, we do an annual review of activities so that we do not forget anyone. So any new industries that come up in between most probably will be added to our activities list at the beginning of the next year. And that, for instance, I have to give credit to the actual register and the policy making that's happening in the UAE in itself, as they are very active in actually adapting to new policies. Yes, and industry is always looking for more as businesses change faster than but I think the pace that we as a in the UAE or as a government are moving towards policy, I think it is. At a certain extent, it's very fast compared to lots of places around the world. So we should acknowledge that at this point.
Yeah, and Ramesh, sort of carrying on from that, the core here is entrepreneurship. How to move that forward? If the development of clusters is seen as sort of a structure of support from government bodies, from private bodies, from investors as well. Is that taking away from an element of entrepreneurship? Because if you've got an idea, you've really got to bleed for that idea, haven't you? Or is that support network essential for moving it forward?
I think I understand your question. Are you talking about capacity?
More about the sort of idea. If you're an entrepreneur, if you've come up with a great idea, if you want to take it to the next step, and you've got the support, whether it be from a government body or from a network, from a cluster, is that the way forward to move your idea forward?
Yeah, I think So I think it's a very important question. Basically, we can buy the best practices that are available. Okay, so there is no secret about it. When you talk about clusters, things happen in a crowded space when people can bounce ideas off and so on, right? That's the ecosystem that is, we are trying to build. The question is, if you can't really take and transport the cluster that's there in Silicon Valley and put it here, it won't work, okay? It's different, and especially landscape has changed, as I said. So it has to be customized. So that's where, I think that you have to be, there are different actors in this capacity building process, okay? So being part of the university, we have the privilege to work on the mindset of the people and the ecosystem and building them up, right? I think that, it's going to evolve over a period of time. And one thing I would like to point out is that you have to first believe you can create magic. You have to believe you are going to do it. It's going to happen anyway, right? And entrepreneurship is cool. I have a lot of young students working for me, and they say that, they work very hard, and they say, it helps them get dates, actually. Being entrepreneurship is the right thing to be. So I think it's a lifestyle, okay? I think it's going to happen over a period of time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I think the role of accelerators, and we've been in talks with NYU about working together, is to make it so that those entrepreneurs bleed less for their ideas, right? So we bring in support, and those entrepreneurs that are very drawn in and seduced by the whole lifestyle, we're then providing the vehicle for them to actually take those ideas and bring them to market and continue to build them after they graduate. And I think, iteration and change are a crucial part of this ecosystem. It's in our DNA. So our whole model is built around lean methodology, getting entrepreneurs to continually question their biases and their assumptions. And I think you're seeing, just by the fact that we just launched last night, we're here, we're going to work with NYU, all three of us are here working to build this ecosystem together. It's changing so rapidly. So I think the pieces are now coming together, and it's just a matter of, bringing all of the elements working together in the right way so that entrepreneurs get support from A to Z. So you have the VCs coming in, offering that growth capital. You have the angel investors understanding the opportunity. You have the accelerators. You have the universities. And you're creating that whole pipeline.
If I can just add, Tom, I think Heidi mentioned a very important thing here, which is communities. And I think this is a cornerstone on everything that we do today. The physical factors that are there, the building and everything else around it is there. Everyone can do that. And that's not that's basically something that could make it happen. But the important part of the whole equation, or the whole importance that we are putting here, is the community itself. And like Professor said, it's all about jumping ideas or bouncing ideas across your friend around the corner. And building these, today this is an integral part of what we do in Dubai and the city. The physical part and trying to give people the infrastructure to do business is one part. But the other important factor that makes us different today is the community. Today we have a very vibrant community. We have a community of professionals that think alike. Professionals that basically today would leave his Cisco job, for instance, and he will go and start his own business. And we find that as a very interesting, cycle. It helps developing further businesses, and like the panels before us were talking about, this creates a knock-on effect, which moves people into the cycle of entrepreneurship. And it creates more businesses, it creates more work opportunities. And these are some of the things that we are talking about. Today we have in the zones, for instance, that we run in TCOM Investments, which are the whole 9 zones, we have around 70,000 workers. So and you can imagine how many people, and we are expecting to grow that, to double that fold in the next 10 years, and that is interesting. In addition to the fact that I think it's very important to highlight that today, our arrangements with universities, with accelerators, with entrepreneurs, with investors, with everyone else, basically in the whole cycle of entrepreneurship and trying to grow that, is another important factor. And this is, I think, where N5, for instance, plays a role. Although we don't want to define ourselves as an accelerator or an incubator, but we would like to define ourselves as a center where people could come and connect. And that will ease basically the opportunities for students, for instance, from NYC, to find their next accelerator, to have that options available, basically. It's like, and I don't want to call it a mall for talent, but this is how it should be, right? You come and you choose out of a wide selection of accelerators, a wide selection of investors that you might be clicking with. And like the gentleman also before and in the panel earlier, you need to find that chemistry somewhere. And this chemistry will always be found when you have a group that is basically close together, and we are able to, hopefully we're able to bring them together to that platform and give the opportunity to people.
Indeed. So I actually want to make one point in this context. When I say the landscape has changed, I think you have to be very strategic. You can't compete head-on with what Silicon Valley does very well, because they do it very well. Boston does it very well, right? Singapore does it very well. So you have to find an entry point, okay? And that is you have to be strategic and deliberate, right? So, when I looked at it, actually something really came up very clearly. Is that because of the two things, that 45% of the world GDP in the next 10 years is going to come from 7 new growth economies. So to service the needs of those new economies, you need a whole new different business model. Let me explain why. How. There is rapid migration, urban migration, right, from rural to the urban. And so the governments are looking into building what's called megacities. Okay, megacities by definition are about 50 million people or whatever it is. So if you really take a step back and then say, what is the impact of this, urban, rural migration into the urban centers and megacities is the population feeds at the bottom of the pyramid, right? That means if you really, the traditional mantra that what's good for the middle class is good for the global economy, right? That's so 20th century. In the 21st century, because of this, there's a whole new band of middle class, over 1 billion of them, in the wage grade of $5 to $30 a day is being created in the next 10 years, okay? They need, there's a UN report that came out identifying this need, right? So this is what I call the new middle class. They have needs in terms of education, health, entrepreneurship, jobs, and water, and so on. While, policies and other things the governments have to create, the current business model, which is the Silicon Valley model, a Boston model, cannot make products and services for these people. It just doesn't work. So here is the major opportunity for us in the UAE to position ourselves strategically to become a global force. It's a whole new playground. It's a white space. Anyway.
I just wanted to add to that. I mean, also, as the advance of robots and technology makes a whole segment of the society redundant, we're going to have to fill that skills gap if we want to have stable societies. So we really have to also, the time is now to invest in alternative education vehicles that can give people those skills to become entrepreneurs where there are no jobs, learn new skills to develop new technologies. And that's not necessarily, Silicon Valley is not necessarily the epicenter of that, of new sector of education. So I think that's where I also see accelerators. I mean, yes, we are an investment vehicle. Yes, we're fundamentally generating returns. But in a way, we're also testing models for alternate education vehicles that can train this growing population that's going to emerge over the next 50 years. It's an urgent problem. And that's why it's not just bringing the cluster together, but also creating that curriculum that can transform mindsets and educate people in ways to actually bring new ideas towards viable businesses. It's going to be crucial.
Yeah. Listen, I want to stay true to my promises a little earlier on of making this as interactive as possible. And rather than us have this chat amongst the four of us, if there are any questions from the floor, we'd like to encourage as many people to have a say now. A perfect opportunity for three leaders in their respective industries to give you their thoughts. If you've got any questions from the floor, if you're too embarrassed to ask them, you can tweet them to us at your heart's content from the anonymity of your seat. But if you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand and we will get a microphone round to you. Perfect opportunity to ask any questions. Or is everyone just desperate for lunch at the moment? Let's get some microphones over. If you have a question, just raise your hand. If not, feel free just to send through your tweets to the wall behind us. They'll come through to me as well, and I will post them for you. But one question that I had thinking about this particular subject, and it just goes back to what you were saying there, Ramesh, about the white space that we're working in here. We all turn to Silicon Valley when we're looking for success in business these days, and give free food to your employees and put a pool table in the foyer and everything's okay these days. But has the demand for content changed across the field when you talk about that white space, or does that remain key?
I think the content is changing constantly, actually. And, because it's more global, and the whole thing about what's happening because of democratization of entrepreneurship is that you can mass customize products and services. If you really look at it, most of the West, I spent over 40 years in the West, in the US, right? So when I say this, the West has been overly prescriptive in terms of what the world needs in terms of products and services. And and it has gotten away with it, okay? It leads to a lot of waste and unnecessary, innovations and things that are not really sustainable. I think what is happening now is that because those products and services were in the hands of big multinational corporations. I worked for a multinational corporation, Kodak, for 30 years. Okay, you talk about free food and things like that. We had that all. We were the Apple in the 70s, right? We were the so it's extremely important to recognize that this shift, the paradigm shift that is driven by the new social order, the digital social order, is mass customization, okay? And it is taking the mountain, which is in the hands of the multinational corporations, tamping it down and handing a little bit of that playground to the individual, entrepreneurs. So it's called, previously in the 20th century, it's all scalability by size, right? Whereas here, it's scalability by size as well as scalability by numbers, right? I don't know if you remember the presidential election of Howard Dean, the way he came from nowhere because he raised money in $10, $20 bills and really was a very formidable competitor in the presidential race. So what I'm saying is the world economies can be scaled through scaling by numbers as well to a significant extent. I don't know if that answers your question.
Completely, yeah. I mean, and I just want to pick up with Nina because I know that content's very key to you. And I suppose I'm playing devil's advocate here to a certain degree because one of the criticisms I've heard in the past is I'm a media company. I'm responsible for creating unique content. Why would I go to a cluster where there are opposition having a cup of coffee behind me listening to my unique content? Where does that benefit me?
I mean, I don't think you have to look any further than 2454 to see that they've actually, those are our partners here in Abu Dhabi, invested in Arabic digital content and spawned all kinds of businesses that are coming out and serving the region and benefiting from the high YouTube penetration rates in the region. They're not yet being cannibalized by traditional media. We're having actually at our workshop at 2 p.m., 4 of the leading YouTube channels in the region. So Harabish, U-Turn, 2 amazing creators in Hisham Mansour and Mohammed Al-Basyouni in Egypt are seeing massive success by bypassing traditional media, going straight to YouTube. I think, globally people are still figuring out the revenue model for working in digital, but thus far they're really becoming, U-Turn may become the YouTube of Saudi because they can control and bring on board the new talent coming in. So they're no longer necessarily beholden to YouTube at a certain point. So, so to come back to what we're doing, we're empowering that process and essentially connecting entrepreneurs to those leaders in the ecosystem who can help them take it forward. By no means, allowing them to be, chewed up by the giants in the industry.
That word connection has come back up again, and I suppose that is something that we were mentioning a little earlier on with regards to creating that platform to allow that connection to happen. And again, that is key to everything that you're trying to achieve.
Definitely. I think it's very important that the whole idea of someone might take my idea away should be diminished and taken out of the whole equation. And I think that's the main thing you do at the initial phase of creating industries such as these. I think the guy who has an idea and sleeps on it for another 2 years, most probably if he sleeps on it in 6 months, one of the 2 billion people will figure it out. So I think the whole idea is to create a basically first to market kind of an attitude, which only happens when you start collaborating and try to communicate very well internally. So with your colleagues, with your your competitor in some cases where you want to bounce an idea so that you both could grow. And I think the industry today has so much room for people to grow that it doesn't matter if you're competing with X or Y because the market is huge. Yeah. So basically the more the merrier when it comes to opportunities. But I think, and that is a major factor, I think is a mind shift, which we have been going through for the last few years and trying to change people's mindset about sharing and collaboration. And I think this is one of the major added value benefits of the West. I think the attitude of sharing is very apparent. And I think we mentioned Silicon Valley a lot, but that is one of the things that are there. And I think they're very apparent in the fact that they share information, and that kind of information that is being shared creates more opportunities. It breaks down barriers, which is very important today. I think it's very important for us to understand that we should break these entry barriers to this part of the industry. And earlier people, or today I think people are thinking it's very difficult to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's easy, for sure, but I'm saying that it's not impossible. Yeah. And I think we've done so many different things that could have been seen impossible a few years ago. Today they are possible. Yeah. So whether it's in architecture or whether it's in actually bringing the country to where it is today, I think this in itself is an added, is a feat when it comes to that. And so no, there shouldn't be barriers, I think. And sharing of this information is very critical. And I think a very important thing that I took away from my last few years working in this is that sharing success stories with people around you is very crucial for this industry to grow in this part of the world. It's good for you as an individual if you are able to exit, but it's better for you as an individual to exit and tell everyone about that exit so that people feel that there is an opportunity. There is no glass ceiling. People are becoming, I don't want to say millionaires, but at least people are coming out with a good amount of money when they exit after a year or 2 or 3 or whatever. So the possibilities are all open, and this is what we are trying to promote. People should talk about it when it happens.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
But I just wanted to make another comment to your point. We have to also remember that we're living in an era in which the incumbents in the media industry are also afraid. I mean, they're needing to look at the up-and-coming talent so that they are not disrupted. They know that they can't always recreate what these young guys are doing on YouTube. And if you look at some of the acquisitions, further to your point, Majed, recently in the ecosystem, a lot of them have been in media. So we've seen Diwani, which was acquired earlier this year, which is an Arabic content portal, which was acquired by a French media company for, I think, rumored around 40 million, because they're cracking the complexities in this market that external players realize they can't do. So they're coming in. You know, MEVP mentored the acquisition of Shahia, which is an Arabic content portal focusing on recipes, which has captured the Saudi market, acquired by a Japanese company. Flat 6 Labs had a graduate building a digital marketing product that was acquired by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp. So the value of these young players, you know, I don't think it's that the big guys want to recreate what they're doing. They want to come in and acquire them.
The entrepreneurs of tomorrow, Ramesh, are they any different? You see those students day on day. Is their mindset changing? Are they still conscious of content?
I think it's interesting. NYU Abu Dhabi is an interesting college, so I cannot really answer it in terms of, I can't generalize, but we have students from over 100 countries, right? And every 6th student is from another country, given the size of the school right now. And actually an interesting statistic, like one of the classes that I taught last January, I had 24 students from 23 countries and 2 from Macedonia and no one from States, okay? So it's a very diverse student body, okay? So I cannot generalize, each one is very different.
Yeah.
What I found is that their learning styles are different, their approach to problem solving is very different, and the idea is that they're all very smart. Our admission rate is like less than 3%. That means they're top students from around the world, right? So I don't know. It's too soon to say. To generalize. What kind of average. I hope we are not averaging them out. That's one thing. But I just got an email yesterday from one of my students who just graduated. He's from Kenya, and he just started a job in a company. And then he also told me that because of the classes that he took, he's also started a trading company between Kenya and the U.S. So what I'm saying is it's not like taking a regular job.
No, definitely.
They also do entrepreneurial things.
Yeah.
And he said, thank you for instilling the entrepreneurial spirit in me. So what I'm saying is, yes, I think they think very differently. They think very differently. They look at the society very differently. They are very global. One thing that I'll tell you that is very striking, is that you must have heard of this HALT global competition out of Dubai, at $1 million competition. So 3 years ago, 4 sophomore students came to me, and then they said that they wanted to compete in the $1 million prize. I asked them, do you know what you're talking about? You're going to compete against some of the best graduate school MBA students from global colleges like Stanford, Harvard, Yale. They said, no, that's fine. They are so young, they are fearless. They don't know anything, but they know everything, right? So the long story short is that they won the top prize. And the interesting thing about this is, I think, comes to your question.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton gave the prize and then wrote a Time article magazine saying that he has hope for global peace, and he gave 5 reasons. One of the 5 reasons is this win by NYU Abu Dhabi students, because the students are from India and Pakistan and China and Taiwan, right? You know about the politics of those countries, right? I was the coach of this team, and they undertook this major, colleges from Harvard, Stanford and all that. It was brutal. We spent 1 month working through this thing, and they won. You see, there lies the answer to your question. Yeah. It speaks for itself, right?
Well, definitely, I think although we try to take in lots of applications from around the world, and I think the first round of application, we got an application from Finland, for instance. And that tells you that the globe is very small, and exactly like you said, I think this is something that you don't find a lot. You find 23 nationalities in Israel. And today we're talking about the UAE with around 230 nationalities living, each with his own different culture, different thinking, different way of doing, but still things are and they call it a melting pot for a reason, right? Exactly. So that you don't see actually these things affecting everyone. There are some things that are affecting, but in general, I think if you take the general approach, you have a very seamless transition between these cultures, and that is, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Talking of seamless transitions, it looks like we're going to move things on here at the summit as well. We've got the Oscars acceptance speech thing, so get off stage, you lot. But just before we do that, if there are any final questions, we've probably run out of time. If there are any brief questions from the floor, we can probably get to that. We've just got one down here, so we'll eat into the next panel's time very quickly just to get one answered. Yes, sir. Yeah, I can hear you, so I can... Oh.
Sorry, thanks, Tom. I just didn't want you to fail our audience, so I'm asking this question. Sid Ahmed Ben Rawan, Professor of Innovation, University of Minnesota, USA. Question to my colleague from NYU. Are there any interdisciplinarities taking place in terms of conferences and other events that allow, again, this discussion and conversation between different disciplines, people from IT, from economics, from medical school, from other disciplines, actually to spur the notion of innovation? We don't want actually to cluster innovation, we want to decluster innovation, and that's probably one of the most important philosophical debates we have in innovation. Thank you.
Great question, and the crowd have done their bit.
That's a good question. Are you asking whether we have that interdisciplinary? Yes, that's actually the foundation of our educational curriculum here. So we are a liberal, by design, actually, we are part of what's called a global network university, which is different from the other university campuses that you see around the world. Like, we have a campus in New York, which is our primary campus, and we have one in Abu Dhabi, and we have one in Shanghai. And the way it is set up is that they're very connected. So there's a constant flow, a seamless flow of students and faculty and resources between these 3 global campuses. So one, there is cultural, mixing, right? And secondly, we are a liberal arts college by design, with physical sciences and engineering folded into it, because we believe that in the 21st century, in order to be competitive, you have to have 3 levels of competencies. 1, the competency in the chosen field of study. 2, cultural competency, because it's a connected world, right? And 3, social accountability, because whatever you do or you do not do has a social impact. right? So these are the three competencies, and we also designed in Abu Dhabi intentionally students from 100 countries and more, right? Because it's not, we have in the US, liberal arts colleges, right? But you learn about your history and the culture through books, whereas here you're learning them from the books, but with students from other countries sitting right next to you. So we believe that interdisciplinary, these three competencies, and on top of it, we put a platform of innovation on it. And to us, that is the 21st century goal. I hope that answers your question.
Appreciate your question. Thank you very much indeed for holding up the audience side of the bargain this morning. That's it. We are literally going to get taken off the stage any second now because the next panel are waiting in the wings. Just very briefly, just to wrap things up, accelerating startup was the topic of conversation here in this particular discussion this morning. If you could just summarize your advice to anybody who's possibly got that little startup in the back of their mind, their $1 million next bright idea, what's the advice? Starting with you, Majed.
Well, the word is accelerating, and we are in an accelerated location, so everything is accelerated in this part of the world. So that goes with it, without saying. But I think it's very important that people share their ideas, attend these events today, attend or visit at least these accelerators today that are available, and we have so many different accelerators that have come up in the last few months or few years, at least the last 2 years, and that is a very promising thing for people to come and try to find their match, basically, and try to jump to the next level. I think it shouldn't be an inhibiting. I think opportunities are very important and very real. So I think take advantage of it and jump. I think you should jump.
Security are mustering at the door, so an accelerated closing, Ramesh?
First, you got to believe. You got to believe in your idea. You got to believe in yourself. You got to believe you can create magic. That's what I tell my students. Okay, if you don't believe, nobody else is going to believe. Okay, exactly. And start talking to people. Get engaged. Entrepreneurship and innovation is a lifestyle choice. It's not just about. It just changes the mindset. You learn to work with teams, with people. You learn how to make decisions. You learn how to work with constraints. You learn to look down and stare down failures. Get up. You just feel you are the rich. It's a rich lifestyle.
Yeah. And finally, we started with you, Nina. Let's finish with you. Your thoughts?
Thanks, Tom. You've set me up for a shameless plug. I'm not going to say anything soft and fuzzy. I'm going to say apply to Flat 6 Labs Abu Dhabi. Flat6labsabudabi.com. No, seriously, we will inculcate you in the science of building a business. It's a science as much as it is an art. It's about curriculum. It's about connecting to the right people at the right time. And even for people who are in jobs but have an idea in the back of their minds, we'll be building out programs for you to test your idea as well. Join us.
Nina Curley, Managing Director of Flat 6 Labs Abu Dhabi. Majed Suwaidi, Managing Director, Dubai Internet City, Dubai Outsource. Ramesh Jagannathan, the Research Professor, Associate Dean of Engineering, NYU, Abu Dhabi. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom, for your great discussions and all of your panelists.